Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go, this is Valley News Live at 6.
One of the comments one of my deputies had made was, it's kind of sad that we're coming to the age where law enforcement has to go check out the park for needles so kids can play.
A Minnesota dad says his 3-year-old daughter was playing in a Mahnomen park when a needle stuck her foot.
He rushed her to the local ER where he says he was turned away due to lack of space.
Valley News Team's Rose Itzkovitz visited the park, which officials say they swept earlier today for hazardous materials.
It was his son's 11th birthday party.
We had a couple bouncy castles set up here.
But in the middle of Saturday's celebration, panic struck Douglas Lee and his family.
My oldest daughter comes over, running over with Lyrical in her arms, saying that she just stepped on a needle.
What was going through your mind?
Diseases. That's the first thing I thought about.
Lee says he rushed his daughter to the ER a couple blocks away.
And we're knocking on the door because the door is locked.
And when someone answered the door,
they said, well, our beds are full. We have one bed available. That's for trauma. And I was like, are there preventative measures? Isn't this a time-sensitive matter? Because I felt like time was slipping away. I thought, you know, you got to catch anything before it makes its way through her system. That was my mindset. His words were, there's nothing we can do.
The Mahnomen Health Center emailed us this statement saying, in part, no one has ever refused care in the emergency department. If the emergency department is busy, there may be a wait, as is the case in any emergency department. Patients are seen based on the severity of their illness. The hospital says that they would never turn away a patient, that you might have had to wait a little bit.
They didn't say anything like that to me. I heard the words, there's nothing we can do.
Mahnomen County Sheriff Doug Creer agrees. No hospital should turn anyone away. So do you think that it got lost in translation then? Or?
It's possible, because I know that they were busy this weekend. I'm also an EMT on our ambulance, and I know they were running a lot this weekend. What all they had going on at that particular time, I don't know.
In the end, Lee drove his daughter 45 minutes to the ER in Detroit Lakes, where tests came back negative. But even though officials say they've since cleaned this park up, Lee's daughter now plays with shoes on. In Mahnomen, Minnesota, Rose Itzkovitz, Valley News Live.
Lee adds the hospital in Detroit Lakes told him antiviral medications may be too strong for his daughter's 3-year-old body. Though the test did come back negative, she'll have to go through further testing this coming August. This story came to us through our whistleblower hotline, and if you need help with a serious issue in your community, the advice is to call the number on your screen, 701-237-6576, and leave your tip. We'll do our best to get to the bottom of it.
A developing story out of Grand Forks as police are looking into the death of a 5-month-old girl. On Tuesday, Grand Forks County Social Services notified officers of injuries to 5-month-old Brinley Reimer. Brinley was eventually flown to Sanford Medical Center in Fargo, where she later passed away. Police say the nature of her injuries is being investigated at this time in order to determine whether they were accidental, intentional, or medical. If you have any information on what led up to Brinley's death, you can call Grand Forks Police at 787-8004.
Hutch has been keeping an eye to the sky all day, looking for rain and any other stormy weather out there. What should we be expecting tonight?
Well, the easiest thing to say there is the heat. We are very warm with temperatures that have soared into the 90s. Fargo cooling off a couple of degrees now after setting a record in the low 90s today. 91 in Grand Forks, also a record. A lot of 80s even through Lakes Country. Here's what we're seeing on the radar. Most of our morning convection and thunder showers have exited the region. You notice a little bit of a line beginning to form to the west and south of Fargo. That's right in this general area we're monitoring, as that hot air has a little bit of moisture available to produce some strong storms. Any storms that form tonight in the heat and humidity will bring the risk of some large hail and some gusty winds. Any counties you see highlighted in yellow here under a slight risk for severe storms tonight. I do not think they'll be widespread. We'll have a few hit and miss storms throughout the night that could be strong. The prime time for storm timing tonight, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. for eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota. We'll keep you updated there. Looks like the heat continues, but not necessarily thunderstorms every day in your 7-day planner. Details in a moment.
That sounds good. Thanks.
You bet.
The North Dakota Association of Counties says further budget cuts to the judicial branch would critically affect the state's juvenile court system. Officials say they told lawmakers last month about the negative impact state budget cuts would have on juvenile offenders. The state trimmed 20% of juvenile court staff last year. About 75% of the judicial budget is wages. Lawmakers passed several justice reforms last year, including bills for substance abuse and behavioral health. But those bills didn't include juveniles. The attorney for the association, Aaron Burst, told the Interim Justice Reinvestment Committee last month that the juvenile court cannot face more cuts if the state is truly serious about trying to help people so they don't become an adult offender.
Police say the mother involved in a murder-suicide of her 3 kids bought the gun the day before. Grand Forks authorities say 35-year-old Astra Volk was the shooter who killed her children before ending her life on May 3rd. Investigators say that she bought the gun at a pawn store. In order to do so, she completed a firearm background check where 2 questions pertain to mental health. They asked if a person has been in a mental hospital or qualified as being mentally defective. Police say Volk, as far as they can tell, was neither and was legally allowed to buy the gun. Volk made posts on social media stating that she and her children struggled with mental illness and that her mother said that she had struggled with a bipolar disorder.
A woman is in jail after sending police on a wild goose chase while she was under the influence of drugs. Jamestown police were called to an apartment by a woman claiming someone was on her deck trying to get into her apartment. It turns out there was no intruder, and an investigation revealed the woman was under the influence. Stephanie Hess of Jamestown faces charges of possession of a controlled substance and possession of meth paraphernalia. She's being held at the Stutsman County Correctional Center.
Charges are pending against a Fargo woman after a 3-car crash along Interstate 94. It happened this morning near the 45th Street underpass. Authorities say a 58-year-old woman was heading west on I-94 when she was hit from behind by a vehicle driven by 26-year-old Jericho Qualley. That caused the woman's car to slam into another vehicle in front of her. One of the vehicles caught fire, but crews quickly put it out. Qualley was taken to Sanford for possible injuries. The other 2 drivers were not hurt.
A Grand Forks coffee shop has some damage after a roaster caught fire. The Grand Forks Fire Department responded to Bully Brew Coffee House at 2100 South Columbia Road. They found fire in the roaster and the attached chimney and put it out quickly. The damage was mainly to the roaster itself and the chimney, with some smoke damage throughout the business.
Investigators are combing through ashes trying to find the cause of a fire that went up, a cabin that went up in flames at a Minnesota resort. Authorities say no one was hurt. It happened last night at Breezy Point Resort, which is southeast of Bemidji. Witnesses say the flames went up 60 feet into the air. The 4-bedroom cabin is privately owned.
Secretary of State Al Jaeger has approved a petition for circulation that would change the state's voter law. The change in the voter law would only allow U.S. citizens to vote and would also add a line stating only qualified electors can vote. For the measure to be placed on a November ballot, 26,904 signatures must be submitted to the Secretary of State by midnight on July 9th.
Later on Valley News Live at 6, no quit in this man, why he and 3 others are walking from the Canadian border to the South Dakota border.
Up next, another potential danger on social media that parents may want a heads up about.